Hey, it's Chuck. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth. We're Ohioans. He's got it all, man. He's even got the jaw. You know the jaw. You see that jaw, and you're just like, yeah, man, that's a dude. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. It is showtime, and welcome into Buckeye Huddle Primetime. Appreciate you so much for joining us here at your home for Buckeye football, the best coverage in the game after an amazing weekend of college football. But going into the weekend, it did not look like that to me, looking at that slate of games. I actually, it looked so bad. I recommended that it was a good week for people to save up for next week, get yourself some brownie points with your significant other or your family, maybe miss that noon slate and go enjoy the day outside with them and pretend like you're making a big sacrifice when really you're not, because the games are trash. And it was amazing. That 3:30 window will probably go down as the best window of the year. There were so many exciting games going on. I've got, 5 different screens with the split screens down here. I couldn't keep up. I've got but 2 eyes, guys. 2 eyes, one brain. I couldn't keep up with all the action. And I want to recap a couple of those games and where the Buckeyes kind of are fitting into this national landscape here as we move now halfway through the season, just about. Buckeyes, of course, with the massive win against Minnesota. We got a lot to talk about with that game. Most of the general public is discrediting it because it was Minnesota, and because when you look at a couple of the teams Ohio State has beaten, Washington, they struggled. They were down 20 points late to Maryland. They ended up coming back and winning, but Maryland's pretty good, and people are discrediting that. And obviously Texas does not look good right now. Texas loses to Florida, and they really look like trash. The Florida offensive line and defensive line really pushed Texas around, which nobody expected. They certainly looked a lot better against us, which, could mean a couple of things. But honestly, I'm not too concerned about any of these resume arguments, because in this era, unless you lose more than 2 games, these resume arguments don't matter. I don't intend on seeing these Buckeyes lose 2 or more games. So anyway, tonight I want to start with Julian Sayin. Julian Sayin, to me, I feel like was the least celebrated number 1 quarterback who was starting at a big time program that we've seen in a long time. And I mean that even by Ohio State fans. Like, this dude was a massive recruit, Elite 11 winner. And it just didn't feel the same kind of exuberance like you felt for a Bryce Underwood or a Dylan Raiola nationally. It didn't even feel like that at home. But Julian Sayin comes into this Minnesota game under some criticism, also a lot of praise. But he wins Big Ten Freshman of the Year, which is the second week of the year. Not year of the week. The year probably too, because that's his second one of the week. And when we look at the updated Heisman odds, Julian Sayin is now behind just Carson Beck of, I almost said Georgia, of Miami, Dante Moore of Oregon, Ty Simpson of Alabama, and Jeremiah Smith of Ohio State. Julian Sayin sitting at number 5. Number 5. Interesting discussion to be had there with 2 Buckeyes at number 4 and number 5, one the receiver, one the quarterback. Now, the quarterback usually wins in that situation between the 2 of them. In this instance, who knows with Jeremiah? He's just such a one-off. But they could potentially split votes. I don't care who wins it. I would sure love a Buckeye to win that. It's been too long. But Julian Sayin's the real deal, man. He is the real deal. We got him for 2 years. And Ryan Day, as a head coach, quarterbacks have always been his thing. We know this. And we've seen him now with several different quarterbacks. We've got a good baseline. We got a good track record to go back and say, how was he with this guy? How was he with that guy? I think that Julian Sayin is the perfect fit for Ryan Day. I think that this duo together is pretty doggone lethal. Ryan Day, tough as nails with his quarterbacks. And we could just go back through them. In 2022, there was rumors that CJ Stroud and Ryan Day weren't even on speaking terms, which I thought was a bunch of gobbledygook. And then CJ Stroud confirmed it last year. We saw him on the sidelines with Kyle McCord. Like, it was clear those 2 did not work well together. He's a perfectionist. He's really hard on his guys. and they all deal with him a little differently. I think in the brief time that we've seen Julian Sayin's personality and we've watched them interact, that Julian is perfectly wired to deal with him. He helps him excel. He doesn't make him stressed. And not only is he wired perfectly to deal with him, we've heard Ryan Day say how surprised he's been now that they got the iPads and they come off the field. He always asks the quarterback, "What'd you see?" He tells him what he saw. And Ryan Day has said, "Yeah, we'll go check the iPads." And sure enough, he was right. I was wrong. And that's something to hear him say that. The way he talks about Julian Sayin, it's got an air of confidence about it that you didn't feel with a couple of guys he's coached. And I think that this fit feels so good. And Julian Sayin is exactly the quarterback that Ryan Day tries to kind of mold guys into. Like, that's just who he is. Ryan wants guys to make routine plays routinely. He wants someone who's responsible with the football, someone to stay within the play. He doesn't like freelancing. He wants an accurate passer. He wants a guy that doesn't have the instinct to take off and run. He wants to make the play. He wants to pass the ball. And all of these fit Julian Sayin. He also wants a guy who's not afraid to put it downfield, which Julian Sayin is not. And when you go to start 5 against Minnesota, Julian pulls off a fantastic 23 of 27 for 326 and 3 touchdowns, which is ridiculous. 85% completion percentage. Guy was leading the country in completion percentage. He raised that number now up over 80% on the year. And heading into this last game, we had this kerfuffle going on the social medias. And I talked about it on the show last week. The college football nerds, they're a pretty big YouTube channel, analytics guys. And they gave Julian Sayin an incomplete grade as a downfield passer. And they wanted to make it clear they weren't criticizing him, just saying there's not enough data. He gets an incomplete grade. And there wasn't enough data because he was ranked 98th in number of attempts over 20 yards. 9 attempts. By the way, he was 9 for 9. But then they went over each one of those 9 attempts and tried to kind of discredit each one of those passes. I mean, each one of them. They went through all 9. Credit to them for going through and doing all that work. But unless you're going to go through everybody else's each attempt and try to discredit why this one counts and this one doesn't, it's not really objective, is it? But one of their bigger complaints I thought was really funny, and I got a picture. So Ryan Day instructs his quarterbacks to put a ton of air on the ball on a deep shot. And he does that because he knows he has an advantage with his wide receivers. And he thinks that the odds are better of them coming with a positive outlook on the play, getting a pass interference or getting a catch, if they put that ball up and let that receiver make the play instead of the quarterback trying to rifle it in there. So one of their big complaints was they were trying to insinuate Julian had a weak arm, and he put way too much air on the ball, as if to mean like he had to load it up so hard to throw just this 40-yard ball that it was just a big looper. Look at this ball, this pass that was perfect to Carnell Tate. Look at the trajectory. Our Tom Orr took this, by the way. It's a beautiful shot. Look at the trajectory of that ball. I mean, it looks like it's darn near coming straight down. And that is following orders to a T, because that thing must have looked like a rainbow up in the air. But what a ball, by the way. I mean, that is just, it couldn't get more perfect. So basically, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do, and he's putting it right on the money. But a lot of Ohio State fans, too, were unhappy with the lack of long ball targets at the Washington game. No targets over 20 yards. Was he scared? There were some opportunities. People were saying 4 or 5. I thought there was a solid 3 where he had his feet set, had time, and didn't pull the trigger. His average depth of target against Washington was the lowest it's been this year, just 4 yards an attempt, which is really low. So he catches all this criticism all week. Maybe Ryan Day heard it, because against Minnesota, Julian Sayin with a season-high 5 shots of over 20 yards. He hit 3 of them for a total of 151 yards on 3 balls. And of course, as you see there, they were money. Gorgeous passes. His targets over 20 yards now, 14 of them in total on the year. He's hit 12 of them. And those weren't the only gorgeous passes he threw. I mean, gorgeous passes on the move, hitting Carnell Tate on the sideline with that extension catch. Max Clare, the one where he got drilled in the face and he stayed there and took the hit and hit Max Clare and got up smiling and laughing like, man, that was good. That was great to see. We saw his personality coming out even more It did at Washington a little bit. We saw it a lot in this last game. And the craziest stat of this game, that he was 85% completion percentage with his depth of target 11 yards down the field. Remember, just 4 yards against Washington down the field. So 11 yards with 85% completion percentage. That is ridiculous elite, like ridiculous. So how do you come back from all that and criticize Julian Sayin? He has great wide receivers. I heard that one today. You can't win with these idiots. Now, we heard the college football nerds say that. I want to tell you what the PFF guys had to say. After this game, I was listening to the PFF guys. And obviously, these are analytic guys, just like the college football nerdios. And these analytic guys, I'm just going to give you 3 quotes that came out of the little tidbit they had when they were going over their numbers. He's better than C.J. Stroud was at Ohio State right now. I'm not so sure he isn't Day's best quarterback right now. In next year's draft, him or Jeremiah Smith are going number 1 overall. So what does that mean? Just opinions. Doesn't mean much, but it is opinions from guys who do nothing but look at numbers and pick up patterns, and they know what all the elite of the elite guys have looked like over the years, and they're looking at Julian Sayin with the advanced analytics and saying, this guy is ridiculous. And, of course, he looks ridiculous to the novice who doesn't look at all these fancy numbers. But we saw what we saw against Minnesota. In every game, it seems to just get a little crisper, a little better. He gets a little more confident. And I just cannot help myself from going back to what I thought was a massive turning point in the Ryan Day tenure. And it kind of all started with the decision to bring Julian Sayin in. I think it was huge for the program. I think it was a really tough decision. I don't think that decision gets made without the position that Ryan Day was in at the time. And we're talking about the failure at the end of the 2023 season, ending in massive disappointment, losing the game. Kyle McCord transfers out. Not that Ryan Day didn't want that. It was just kind of the end of what he felt was kind of a failed experiment. Losing the Cotton Bowl in a game they didn't really try in. It just felt disgusting. Devin Brown getting the chance to prove himself and then getting injured in that game, which meant all you had on your roster moving forward, Devin Brown, Lincoln Keenholz, and Aaron Nolan coming in as a true freshman, a very raw true freshman prospect. Then Nick Saban retires. You got Bill O'Brien, and Ryan Day and Corey Dennis had a relationship with Julian Sayin, and now word was they might be able to get him. So they might be able to get him, but they got Aaron Nolan in the class already. And right about now is when I started my show. That's when I started my podcast, right there, during them having this conversation as to whether or not they were going to bring in Julian Sayin. And if they did, it was obviously going to be Ryan Day going against what he really wanted or what he normally previously would have done. And that's why he wrestled so hard with the decision. He told Aaron Nolan he was the quarterback in that class. He wasn't going to take another one. But now here he has this opportunity to take the kid that he wanted the most. What's he going to do? And the story goes, they got a powwow at the Woody for 2 days, and Corey Dennis is the driving force behind him changing his mind, saying, look, we know this guy's the best guy. We have to do it. Ryan Day decides to take him in. And he's talked about since then, like what a difficult decision this was for him to do. And honestly, I don't think that he makes that decision before that time period. I think that that was a reaction to where he was at right then and to frustration from the Alabamas, LSUs, and Georgias of the world, processing the roster, oversigning classes, doing things like this. And he thought, look, it's always going to be culture first, but sometimes I need to make exceptions to get the absolute best roster I can. I owe that to the guys on the team. And that decision, honestly, since he made that decision, he's never not won a national championship. He's never not won a national championship since he made that decision. That's how big it is. But let's talk about this offense against Minnesota. A couple of tidbits. One of the biggest discussions we had last week was the pace of play. Ohio State was dead last in the country. And against Minnesota, what do we see early? They come in, they're playing upbeat, they're playing up tempo, not super speed, but they're snapping the ball with about 20 seconds left on the clock. And they're cruising down the field. Bing, bang, boom, bang. I loved it. It looked great. It was fun to see again. A little bit of tempo, mixing it up. They slowed it back down, sped it up. Best part is Ryan Day still was able to finish this game with his stated goal of fewer plays. They played 62 plays at Washington. They were under 60 against Minnesota. So they were able to mess with the tempo, which was great, and it helped them out. And then they were able to complete the final goal of playing less plays. And I thought that was great. Big difference, though. Washington, they only got 7 offensive possessions. One of them was a fumble that they missed out on that possession on the punt, but that would have been 8. This game they had 8 possessions. So more possessions, got to play with the tempo, and still stayed within the parameter of plays that he wants to stay in. And I thought it worked a lot better. I thought it looked a lot better. Curious to see what he'll have to say about it tomorrow at his press conference. I'm sure he'll be asked. But I liked it a lot better having those 10 possessions. And obviously the passing game was on fire. Carnell continues to show number 2 wide receiver in the country, hands down. 9 catches for 183 yards is just insane. I was hoping he'd get to 200. Does get his touchdown. Jeremiah, 7 receptions for 67 and 2 touchdowns. But I thought one of the bigger developments of that game was the involvement of Max Clare. Max Clare equals his total catches in Minnesota that he had all year. And it's kind of like he's looking like the clear number 3 target on this team now. And I think they need one. Brandon Ennis had 1 reception for 2 yards on 1 target. Max Clare with 5 for 63. And having that third threat is just, it's important to have that go-to guy, I think. And I think that that's going to end up being Max Clare over Brandon Ennis. And boy, did I have that wrong. After practice early on in the preseason, me and Mark sat and talked about that. And we set the over-under at 50 receptions for Brandon Ennis, and we both took the over. I think that we're just going to see Max Clare be that guy instead of Ennis, or maybe it flip-flops back and forth. But thus far, Brandon Ennis has less than 70 yards receiving, I think, 72 on the year through 5 games, which I never would have guessed. I never would have guessed at all. But they appear to be fine with how this is working. So that's great. I think Ennis is a great blocker. I'm not someone who thinks he's not getting open or it's anything like that. I just think Clare is probably the better option right now. But the passing game, obviously working great. The running game, on the other hand, they averaged 5.1 yards at the end of the game, which was a little bit skewed because you had a couple long ones in garbage time at the end of the game. And they need to do a little bit better. It feels like something's not quite clicking, though we did get to see Bo Jackson get his first start. He is the clear starter now. 13 carries, 63 yards. And it's pretty clear when he carries versus the other guys that he just gets a little bit extra out of each run. But we would like to see a better output than 13 for 63, that's for sure. In a role reversal from the Washington game where we saw C.J. Donaldson kind of being that number 2 back, this game we saw James Peoples end up with 7 carries. C.J. Donaldson only had 3, and the 3 that he had, he was brought in each time on a short yardage situation. Comes in, gets 1 yard. And I wasn't expecting that this game. I thought for sure that they would give Bo those shots in the short yardage situations. They went with Donaldson again. I think Bo's the best option in short yardage. I think he's the best option in every yardage, which kind of presents a problem. All right, we can't use him every time. We got to use some of these other guys. But the short yardage is the most important sometimes. And I just don't think Donaldson is good at it. But that's why I was really excited to see Isaiah West come in later in the game, which I did not realize he was in the game. I was live streaming, and I just looked up, and I saw the handoff, and my initial reaction was to say to the chat, wow, it's the 4th quarter, and Bo Jackson has still got a lot of juice, meaning he looked juicy. He looked fresh. He looked fast. He looked in a way that made me know that it wasn't Peoples or Donaldson. I'm kind of far away from the TV, and it was Isaiah West. He popped. And he does pop like that, and I hope we get to see some more of him. The offensive line, in an interesting development, we saw Josh Padilla come in for Tegra Shabola, which is really strange. Padilla, the backup center, who also dabbles in guard. Tegra, up until the Washington game, had been splitting about 15 snaps with Ethan Onyanwa. and Ethan had no snaps in the Washington game. Tegra played them all. So I was curious as to what would happen this week. Would he give those 15 snaps to Ethan? He's not giving them to him. They're taking them. Would those go to Ethan? They didn't. They went to Padilla. Now, Ethan did come in at guard later when they brought in the second offensive line. And I got to say, this is a little strange. This is a little strange here. Are they saying Ethan no longer that number 3 guard? Is it now Padilla? I don't know, but I just can't imagine that could possibly be it. I mean, this guy, they've got 1 year with Ethan Onyanwa. If you can't even get out of him, like he's your number 3 guard in case of emergency, and we're going to keep him fresh in games, my gosh, man, what a colossal disappointment. But the rest of the offensive line, not disappointing at all. And I love the way these guys play. Got to take it from the top, man. This got to be coming from Tyler Bowen. These guys are dirt dogs. They're playing nasty. They're mean. And I love to watch them play. You got Phil Daniels, who's just always nasty. The rest of them, just nasty on the football field. They're a great crew. They're a great crew, and they're fun to watch. We got to see freshman Quincy Porter get his first catch, 15 yards. Great to see him out there. He looks big, man. He is so big. Didn't get to see a Mylan Graham catch. I know everybody's wanting to see that. On the defense, ridiculous effort against Minnesota. 68 yards rushing, 94 yards passing, and they were just brutal. After that first series of 66 yards, which, like I said, I was live, there were some people getting really irritated on that first one. Like, man, these guys, are they going to be able to move the ball on us like this? No, the answer was absolutely not. Buckeyes stop them in the red zone, as they've stopped everybody in the red zone, still yet to give up a touchdown all year in the red zone. The linebacker play was phenomenal. Only this time, we got Peyton Pierce in on the action. Sonny Styles had 8 tackles. Peyton was 7. Arvell with 4, a sack, and a TFL. The dudes were everywhere. So the best linebacker in the country, best linebacker unit in the country, or the best linebacker and the best linebacker unit, 3 deep. But as far as the defense, all the usual suspects played really, really good. I think in addition to the usual suspects, we had an excellent game out of Lorenzo Styles, which is big news. Big bounce back performance from Lorenzo. He looked great. He looked athletic. He tackled well. I've been hoping that we were going to see a little more of Will Smith Jr., which we did. 22 snaps against Minnesota for young Will, not little Will, young Will. And he played really good again. After Caden McDonald, Will continues to look like the number 2 defensive interior lineman to me. I think we also saw an improved performance again from Ty Malone as he continues to look a little bit better each week. And we got a big bounce back from Eddie Houston. Edric Houston, we've been hoping on some positive momentum here. There has been none, and we saw it. We saw it. It definitely flashed a couple of plays. I can't wait to get that all 22 and really key in on him every single play he played. 17 snaps, but he had a tackle, 2 pressures, and looked like he was having fun out there in a couple of little snippets. And I was happy to see it because I think this is nothing but a confidence issue. He's got to get it back, and I think he will. So on the right path there, and the Buckeyes need him bad. Zion Grady got to play about 10 snaps, 13 snaps, and he was Ohio State's number 3 rated PFF player, for whatever that means. Also had a really nice tackle, outside contain, TFL, played really good. Zion Grady's a total dude, and he got to play relatively early because Kenyatta went out. Not quite sure what happened there, if that was a concussion or a stinger. I don't know. If anybody's found out, let me know in the chat. I haven't heard about it yet. We also got to see Jarquez Carter, who was in there in the first half, the true freshman, ended up playing a couple of series, and he was in there on a couple big short yardage stops right in the middle. I would love to see Jarquez Carter get a little more run at 3 tech with Ty Malone, Edric Houston, and Jarquez. All 3 of them kind of playing better. Would be really nice to see one of them emerge as like the guy. I don't think they're there yet. Edric, obviously, with the most potential of the 3, and hopefully it can just be him. But if not, it would be nice to see one of them kind of pull away. So all in all, a great game for the Buckeyes as they head to Champaign, Illinois on Saturday to take on the newly minted 17th ranked team in the country, the Fighting Illini. And every week as we see this Buckeyes team continue to get better, winning a national championship this year, which didn't feel extremely likely to me coming into this year. It felt to me like this is more of a house money year, I guess is what it felt like. You got all this turnover. The roster will be more mature in 2026. Let's, come in, try to win it all. You get as much experience as you can, but I'm not going to get too down if that doesn't happen. Obviously, if they make the playoffs, maybe win a couple playoff games, that'd be great. Because it's always a long shot to win a national championship. The odds of it happening are really low. But now, in addition to that, you need a couple breaks to run this gauntlet at the end of the year. And there's just a lot of potential things that could go wrong. But it looked to me like 2026 should be the better team. And ever since we've seen this team, it's just like week after week, they're getting better and they're getting better. And they look like the very clear best team in the country right now. Ohio State coming into the year was in the top group of 4 teams. If you recall back in the beginning of the year, Ohio State, Penn State, Texas, and Clemson, those were the consensus 4. People had them in different orders. But after that, it was really unique. You had 5 more. It was 9 teams total that most people thought, all right, these 9 have the prerequisite skill and talent to win the national championship. So you had those 4. Then you had Oregon, Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame, and LSU. Of the top 4, the Buckeyes the only one standing. Clemson fell off a cliff. Penn State, well, they hosted Oregon 2 weeks ago, lost that game at home. I thought that they would probably bounce right back and still give Ohio State a really tough game when they came to Columbus. And who knows, they still might. They're really desperate now. But they proceed to go out to UCLA and lose to one of the worst teams in the country. And this was James Franklin's year. Like, this was the year he was supposed to get over the hump. They returned everybody, senior quarterback from Northeast Ohio. How much better could it be? And they were going to be the new Michigan, new Ohio State, return their vets and win it all. I thought they'd be really good. Started off those first 3 games playing cream puffs, and they didn't look so great. Their fans were saying they were holding it back. They were holding it back until they played Oregon, and then they were just going to drop a bomb on their head. That did not turn out to be what happened there. And then Jim Knowles and his defense gave up 42 out at UCLA. So things not happy in Happy Valley. The Penn State fans know that they can't fire him because they owe him a $58 million buyout if they do. And they're really talking as if trying to talk themselves into, he's just going to walk away. He's going to hate all this pressure. He's going to hate that we hate him, and he's going to walk away. I got bad news. That dude's not going anywhere. But they are coming to Columbus to play the Buckeyes. And theoretically, they should not be worse than last year. This should just be they're playing worse, which means they can potentially turn it around. I think that's still a really dangerous game. But I'm really curious to see how James Franklin handles this for the rest of the season. They got to beat the Buckeyes, and they got to beat Indiana to make it to the playoffs as a 2-loss team. Now, last week after they lost to Oregon, James Franklin made it public that he asked Jim Knowles to speak to the team. He had Jim Knowles speak to the team and talk to them about having the fortitude to come back and win the national championship last year at Ohio State after a loss. And James Franklin made that very public. So I'm wondering if you had him do the same thing again the following week, because they did lose 2 last year. But it is like clockwork every time James Franklin loses a game at his press conference that he reminds everybody how good he's done the last 12 years. He did not say this after the UCLA loss. So wasn't going to do it 2 weeks in a row. But I'm baffled. I think it's kind of hilarious. Their fans talked a lot of crap on my page this year, this offseason, that they were going to do this and that, and not so much. Of course, the other preseason top 4, Texas loses again. They lose to Florida, and Arch Manning was atrocious again. And I was giving this guy some time before I just said, look, he just flat out sucks. I thought that he was in his head after the Ohio State game. I thought that his coaches did him wrong. Ohio State's coaches did the exact right thing with Julian, whereas they relied way too much on Arch in that first game, passing the ball. Didn't go good, and it was all in his head, and he couldn't shake it. Then he played against Sam Houston. Remember, he has a good game. He flexes on the Sam Houston kid in the end zone. Now he's got his confidence back, and he goes to play Billy Napier in Florida. And what does Sark do? They run the ball 11 times in the whole game with running backs, and Arch Manning runs it 15 times with 29 pass attempts. They put the whole game on Arch Manning. And you got to wonder about Sark at this point. Arch completes just 50% of his balls. Julian Sayin, 85%. Julian Sayin's a year younger, been in the program a year less. I don't want to hear about Arch is young. They average just 2.5 yards a carry, and they lost to the 2 and 3 Florida Gators, and Arch Manning is just not good. He's not good. So a lot of you guys said this to me after week 1, after week 2. You guys were all right. The dude's not good. And you got to wonder how Sark could have sat there with this roster and known he had a Cadillac roster, been to the semifinals 2 years in a row, and this is his quarterback, and he's seen this guy developing or not developing and thought that this was going to work without trying to make a move. I don't understand. But here's what I do understand. Texas, Clemson, Penn State. Let's just look at Penn State and Texas. Both of them in the semifinals last year with Ohio State. Both of them right now with 2 losses, 5 games into the season after coming into the season as a top 4 team. And it makes me feel so lucky. I feel so lucky for the program we root for. This kind of stuff never happens for us. It seems to happen to everybody else. And we can seem to avoid this through stability at the top. And I don't know. I don't know what exactly it is, but it's good to be a Buckeye. We'll put it that way. So Clemson out, Penn State with 2 losses. They got to play Ohio State and Indiana. They're unranked. Texas with 2 losses. They got to play Oklahoma, Georgia, Texas A&M. They're unranked. They're out. I don't like either of their odds to run the table. So who are the Buckeyes' biggest threats now standing in the way of a national championship? A lot of people think it's Miami. Miami might look like the biggest threat if we pull up the top 25, as they are now number 2, Oregon number 3. And this Oregon team, I got to tell you, I thought last year's Oregon team was a little better. I think they're a really good team. Ole Miss, I'm not too, I wouldn't be too worried about a head-to-head with them. Texas A&M, certainly not. In fact, a Texas A&M fan tweeted the other day that Ohio State would lose by double digits to Texas A&M, and Texas A&M would be favored. And Tyler Shoemaker, who runs the T-Shoe Index, saw that, and he ran a hypothetical matchup. He's a betting guy, and he said the line would be Ohio State minus 13.5 against Texas A&M. So that is how much Ohio State would be favored over just the number 5 team in the country. And as far as Ohio State favored against number 2 and number 3, on a neutral field, Ohio State would be a 3-point favorite against the other 2 best teams in the country. So that's how good this team is looking, and people are taking notice. In addition to that, if we look at the odds right now, Ohio State was at plus 600. That's the Heisman odds, sorry. Ohio State was at plus 600, now just plus 420. So Vegas is viewing Ohio State as an even bigger favorite than they were before. But it's Oregon, not Miami, who's number 2, Alabama number 3, Miami number 4, and Georgia number 5. So the Buckeyes being viewed as absolutely the best team, not just by fans of the Buckeyes who are watching them week to week, but by the folks who do this stuff for a living. And the excitement level for this team is kind of through the roof here. And we look at all these programs. I feel like I'm fairly conservative. Like, I'm not a Buckeye fan who just thinks Ohio State's always going to win. I call for them to lose all the time. Not all the time. Like, when I think they're in a 50-50 game, yeah, I think they might lose. But I don't see any program right now that can stack up with these guys. I don't. They really feel like the clear best team. And I'm trying to be as cautious as I can to avoid like hurting myself. But I got to say, man, 14.5 point favorites going into play number 17. This team just feels incredibly elite. This weekend is an amazing weekend. We got a great weekend of football coming up. So the Buckeyes play at Illinois, 14.5 point favorite. Also in the noon slot, Alabama's got a huge game against Missouri. Missouri is number 14. Alabama just a 2.5 point favorite. So we got potential to see an upset there. Then at 3:30, we've got the huge Big Ten matchup this week as Indiana goes to Oregon, and that'll be a really fun one to watch. Can't wait to see that one. Oregon, a 7.5-point favorite heading out there, hosting Indiana. We also got Red River at 3:30. Texas, a 2.5-point favorite. Oklahoma doesn't have John Mateer back, so he's not going to play. Can Oklahoma still beat Texas without their quarterback? That would be the ultimate humiliation. And then the 7 o'clock, we got it all at 7 o'clock. So 7:30, actually, we've got Michigan going to USC, and this one's huge. So we'll talk a little more about this Wednesday. But Michigan, if they go out to USC and they beat USC, their next most challenging game after that is Washington, but they got them at home. And if they can win those two games, Ohio State will roll up in there and they'll be 10-1. Now, if they lose to USC or if they lose to Washington, when Ohio State rolls up in there for the game, Ryan Day will have the opportunity not just to snap his losing streak against them, but to knock them out of the potential playoffs. So that USC game is probably the last best chance for someone to knock them off. Traveling all the way out there, SC certainly can score. They're at the tops of all the offensive rankings. Jaden Mayava is really tearing it up, their quarterback. They've got a receiving threat. They're running the ball well, but they give up a lot of points. I don't know what's the better matchup to play them if you're going to be deficient on one side of the ball. SC still deficient on defense. But if they lose that game, I really want that setup. I want Ohio State to go up there with the opportunity to win or lose. And if you win, you knock them out of the playoffs. That would be so much fun. I'm with Woody's here, who says Maryland is a sneaky decent team this year. That's why I am not, I'm not concerned about Washington not being good or what folks are saying about that win against Washington. Maryland waxed Wisconsin quicker than Michigan did. And I think Michigan's pretty good. Terry says ESPN's pushing the narrative that Miami is the most complete team. Terry's not impressed. I'm impressed, but I'm with you. They're not the most complete team. And obviously the Buckeyes would be a 3-point favorite. I would take the Buckeyes to cover that. Also, we got to factor in that's Mario Cristobal versus Ryan Day and his staff. I'm just not going for it. Texas A&M, they got a big game. Who do they play? Texas A&M plays. They play Florida. So Florida, Texas A&M's number 5. I would like to see Florida knock them off, give them a loss. Then we got Kansas and Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech, I don't know if you guys heard. So Texas Tech got the number 1 defensive tackle in the country, and 2027, number 1 defensive tackle in the country in 2027 on Saturday night. Jalen Brewster, he committed to them. He goes with their number 1 2027 edge rusher, and they're about to get the number 1 quarterback in 2027. And I'm curious to know, do you guys think this is a good thing for college football that Texas Tech is doing this? Do you think it's entertaining? Does it drive you nuts? I want to know. Now, as Ohio State fans, that is a guy that we were in on, that defensive tackle, Jalen Brewster. They also got Felix Ojo, who was another guy we were in on. Ultimately, though, they're mostly pulling away from guys who would probably be on Texas or Georgia's roster. So from that standpoint, we're losing less recruits than they are to Texas Tech. But what are your thoughts about a potential power emerging? These guys are in the top 10 now. Like their roster, if it's already good enough to be in the top 10, and now they're assembling classes like this, it's clear, number 1, that the rules aren't being followed. Who's following the rules? The CSC has 4 employees. But is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? How do you feel about it? The oldest rivalry in the South, Georgia and Auburn, that takes place at 7:30 as well. Georgia number 10, as they head to the Plains to take on 3-2 Auburn as they try to stay alive. So this week, I'll be pulling hard for USC to beat Michigan. I want to see Florida give Texas A&M a loss, and I want to see Texas give Oklahoma their first loss. So those are the selections that are representing me on this week's helmets sitting around me. And let me check out the chat, see what you guys got to say. Cade the Diesel Freak, thank you so much for the super chat, buddy. Appreciate you. Rob H said, this team is extremely fun to watch, especially when the offense is opened up a little. Boy, I couldn't be more with you. I was waiting for that one, Rob. That one was like cathartic to me watching that Minnesota game. It was like, finally, here we go. Let's see something here. I loved it. And Julian Sayin absolutely can deliver for sure. Mar thinks Miami seems to struggle in the fourth quarter. Notre Dame and Florida State made the games at least interesting at the end of the games. Yeah, I think you're right. Sober as a Ghost thinks that Texas Tech looks extremely slow, not seeing what ESPN sees. So I watched them in the Utah game. I was planning on checking them out this past game. I didn't end up tuning in because there was so much going on. Ohio State versus Texas Tech would be something to see. Yeah, I don't think they got a chance right now. Brennan, what's up, buddy? ESPN does hate Ohio State. We are the anti-ESPN SEC empire now, right? We represent Fox, unfortunately. We represent their rival. So, yeah, any way to undermine Ohio State is probably a good thing for them. Definitely the Buckeyes are dangerous. The Fist 501st says, anyone else looking at the big picture, beat Teton. We need our run game and run defense to take leaps and bounds before the game. Can our guys match up with the beef on the field? Well, I would say that our defensive line would look pretty good against their offensive line right now. I don't think their offensive line has been great. They've got pretty good rushing stats, but a lot of it is on Justice Haynes busting off long runs. I like their per play to play average, I don't think has been very good. So if you can contain those long runs, which you're in pretty good position with Caleb Downs, with IGB, who are really good tacklers in the secondary to keep him contained, I think you look pretty good on that side of the ball. Flipping it around, our offensive line against their defensive line, you're right. The run game needs to be better. The good news is you've got, 6 games? You got 6 games. So you got a whole half a season to improve before that game. But, yeah, I'm with you, man. That game is enormous. Posh says, hope you're enjoying your FDS, Juck. What is that, Doreen? What is FDS? KJ's with me about Sark being suspect, and he has to give up play calling. He does. Now, they're going through at Texas what we went through with Ryan Day. Time to hang it up, man, and be the CEO. But from our standpoint, he can go ahead and call those plays as long as he wants. We don't need them getting any better. They're looking like they're taking a step back right now, and I kind of like it. Emily was at the game on Saturday. She was also in the live stream giving us live updates from the game, and somebody yelled at her to sit down while she was at the game. I'm curious, Emily. I saw a video today. It was a little 10-minute clip, and it was this guy. He was a Buckeye fan. He said, I've been going to Buckeye games all my life. I will never go to another Buckeye game. And I'm waiting. Why? Why in the hell would he say that? It was so loud in the stadium. It was noise from start to finish. The only time there wasn't noise is when Ohio State had the ball and was during the play. And immediately after, music, people yelling, the decibel meter comes up, and these people were happy that it got higher and higher, the decibel meter. Bravo, Ross Bjork and the crew. If you can make that type of guy not want to go to the game and in turn bring in somebody who will enjoy themselves in the noisy environment, that is just exactly what we need. So thank goodness. And just 3 more home games, Doreen reminds us here. Did you tell me what FDS is, Doreen? Did you think people don't know what that abbreviation means, buddy? Everybody knows what that means. Yeah, Kamari Bing decommitted from Maryland. Kamari Bing was just in town on Saturday for the game, and now he decommits from Maryland. He's got Alabama and Ohio State after him. He is a 3-star safety out of St. Francis in Maryland, 6'1", 180. Pretty good. Had a good visit. But the word I got was circulating around early in the day was he's not going to make his decision until National Signing Day. That was before this came out that he decommitted. And it makes me wonder, all right, has he changed his mind? Was that initial news going around bogus? I didn't hear it directly from him. So got to wonder there. It certainly sounds interesting. It would be a pretty good get. Full driving. Oh, Doreen. All right. So I got this car that drives, and I got it. I thought that this would essentially be like, I swear I've seen people in these cars and they're like reading books and taking naps and stuff. Like, I swear I've seen this. But that's not the way this works. You have to pay total attention. Apparently, I thought this software would be like safer than a human driver. Like, we don't want you to touch it, because when I was in Arizona, we were taking cabs that were 100% autonomous. And I figured that's probably like, all right, it must be updated enough now that it's probably safer than your average person. Probably not me, but maybe my wife. She's not going to like that comment. But apparently not, because it's got a camera on there that doesn't just look at your body and make sure your hands are on the wheel. It looks at your eyeballs. And if you turn I tested this. I was going like this, just looking out the window. Ding, ding, ding. Pay attention to the road. Just looking out the window like this. I couldn't believe it. It's so obnoxious that it's basically just like cruise control that steers, really. I think that the driving is just a bit of a stretch to call it that. Yeah. And then it'll cut you off if you get 7 strikes for like a week, I heard, or 5 strikes, and it'll turn it off for a week. But I'll be using it tomorrow to drive down to Columbus tomorrow morning. Landon, yeah, I'm with you here. People that treat going to football games as golf outings are the kind of people we want far away, without a doubt. Listen, they have essentially commanded the stadium for a long, long time, telling people like the audacity to yell at Emily to sit down. Now I get it. If Emily's right in front of me, right, and we're in an entire section and nobody else is sitting, I might kindly ask her, hey, I'm going to have to stand if you don't sit down. If I stand, and this poor guy behind me is going to have to stand. Everybody's sitting, why don't you just sit right now, and we'll wait till it gets exciting. But I'm guessing she wasn't the only person who was sitting down. Oh, stop it. I've seen people put masks on with fake eyes to outsmart the camera that looks at the eye. That's interesting. That is interesting. I might be one. Alex, you're screwing with me? I know you are. Alex is trying to get me going. I know he is. People's is amazing. Bo, sort of. Thoughts? Is People's better than Bo? Yeah, this guy's got to be trolling me. Alex, I appreciate the attempt. You're not going to get me. Not tonight. Not tonight. All right, friends. I do appreciate you for joining me on Buckeye Huddle Primetime. We will do it again on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Of course, I'll be on Juck on Bucks probably Tuesday and Wednesday morning. And maybe we'll spit something out tomorrow after the press conference as we go down, see what the boss man has to say about Minnesota, about Illinois, about his quarterback, who is the freshman of the week. A bad dude indeed. We are rolling. Appreciate you guys so much. Thank you as always for joining me. Juck and Feinbaum. Wow. I don't know if I shouldn't have even read that. All right. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one. Juck on Buckeye Huddle Primetime.